Welcome to Reflections, the podcast that biblically encourages, equips, and empowers women for apostolic life and service. Here's your host, Dr. Cindy Miller.
Recently, someone shared with me through a text, I experienced postpartum pretty hard. It was tough because it was the happiest time of my life having a child, and I know how much of a blessing it is, but my body, mind, hormones were not letting me feel that. For me, not so much before or after delivery, but like 3 to 6 months later, it would have been nice to have someone, even if it was my doctor, ask me about postpartum depression and anxiety and explain it to me. And today, that's a conversation I want to have. The one my young friend wished she could have had with someone and didn't get a chance to. We're going to do that today. So welcome to Let's Talk. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to talk about postpartum, that time after giving birth when you just feel like you've been through trauma and your body's trying to reset and regulate, and you're working so hard to just get back to a normal, right? But yet in the middle of trying to feel normal and get your energy back and get going, you're losing sleep. You've got hormones all over the place. A lot of stuff is going on. And so we have with us today this beautiful, precious young woman who I have known more years than I'm going to admit to. She's very young, so I'm not going to talk about watching her grow up because how sad that is to me. But she is just so precious, so loved in our family. Ashley Jackson. So you have been a nurse for 18 years, and for the past 10 years, you have focused on women's care. That's become your specialization.
That's correct.
So welcome, Ashley.
Thank
Glad
you
you're
so
with
much for
us.
having me.
So why don't you just kind of jump in here and start by telling us how you chose women's care as your nursing specialization?
I really think that the Lord led me that way, and I'll explain why. So at 9, when we first started going to church, I had a friend whose mom was pregnant, and I was just intrigued, like, oh, wow, this is so cool. I would sit next to her. She let me feel the baby moving. And after she delivered, I would just sit next to her and just look at her. Can I hold your baby? And she'd let me. And I look at 9-year-olds now like I would never let anybody hold my kid. So I would just sit there during, choir rehearsals or church and just hold this little baby who's now in his 20s, if not almost 30 himself. Like, it's been a long time, but I loved that time of life even before I even decided to be a nurse. And then when I got to nursing school, I got into my maternal child care classes and I was like, oh my goodness, it just clicked. It just made sense for me. And so I didn't get into it right away because at the time when I graduated, everybody wanted to be labor and delivery nurse. Everybody wanted to go into that field and there weren't openings for new nurses. So I did some other stuff. And then as soon as something opened, it was actually a leap of faith. There was no positions except a part-time night shift position. And I needed full-time.
Yeah.
And I talked to my husband about it and he was like, well, what are we going to do? And I was like, I don't know. I'll pick up agency hours, but I truly believe God opened a door. And within 2 weeks, I had a full-time offer at that part-time job. So it really was just God orchestrating the whole way. It's kind of always been a love of mine, a passion for that time of life. It's so precious and short. And even before I became a mom, I just really, it's something special about that time of life that
You
just,
were aware of it from early on.
yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
that is wonderful. Well,
I
good.
call them my church babies.
Excellent.
Babies
I love
before
it.
brothers and all that stuff. So
Yeah, well, you were an only child for a little while, so
for
yeah,
14 years,
you build your life up with other people's siblings, right?
I did. I really did.
I don't blame you. That's awesome. Well, I want to kind of start in, and this is not exactly my field of expertise. So I'm going to rely very heavy on you and your expertise. But if you could just start by describing to us that childbirth and postpartum time frame, because I think when reading literature and research on it, there's agreement across the board, but it's not the same for every single woman. Every woman's different, unique. So help us understand it.
So postpartum, it depends on who you're asking and the research that you find, but there's a very definitive time frame of postpartum that starts right after the baby comes out, right after delivery, and can last for some, like if you ask insurance, they're going to say it lasts 42 days exactly, which we know that's not really how it works.
No.
But if you ask, a doctor's office, they'll say, oh, about 6 weeks. And that might be for that initial recovery, but there's stages of it. So the first 24 hours after delivery, you're kind of in this layer and level of all things have gone well, of just you're elated that the baby is here. You're just taking in, oh my goodness, I'm a parent, I'm a mom. I remember looking at my son and looking around the room like, is somebody going to check me to make sure I'm okay to take this kid home? Like, what is happening? I'm a mom.
Oh,
Like,
actually, it's so true. I can remember being in the room and like knowing I'm leaving the next day with this baby, thinking, no, I think we should stay another week.
leave me here. I didn't even care that I was delivering in the hospital I worked at. I'm like, y'all want to make sure I'm good before I leave? Are you just sure because I'm a nurse already? This is what is happening. So that first
No
24
assumptions.
hours, I feel like we all go through that moment of like wonder. I there's a human here and
Hmm.
now I'm fully responsible. And as someone who has been around babies a lot even before I became a mom, that was still very anxiety driving and eye opening, like, okay, here we are. And then they just send you out. They have pampered you throughout your stay. They help you every time you ring the bell. Here come the nurses to support you. And then they just send you out like, okay, no more bell ringing for you. Just go do it now. You're like, wait.
You want to take that bell home with you?
Well, the nurse actually came in, was like, so are we going home today? And I was like, okay, I guess so,
No,
if I
another day.
must. And so after the first 24 hours, you really start to, okay, I'm the mom. What do we need to do to keep this human alive? It's basic. We can't go into, oh, I think these socks will be perfect with this outfit. How do I feed the kid? How do I change the kid? Because that's gnarly too in the beginning,
Yeah.
right? How do I hold my baby without hurting him or her? All these little nuances of like, I didn't think about. I might be a little nervous to hold my baby. And I've seen moms who are very new to holding newborns and they're shaking when they're
Hmm.
trying to hold their baby for the first time, and then just trying to normalize like you're not the only one who's scared of your baby because you didn't realize just how precious this human is going to be to you and also how vulnerable they are. We've
Hmm.
not had that level of responsibility yet until that moment. So that second 24 hours, and they say it lasts up to 6 weeks. Every mom is different. Not everybody transitions into that role of like, okay, I'm the mom. Let's figure this out and get it done as quickly as others. Some are just kind of stuck in 1, 2, 3, and babies don't come with rule books. I'm not sure if you realize that as soon as I did. I was like,
It's
the
really.
nursing textbooks did not prepare me for this part.
Mhm. And
Somebody,
I was a
anybody, what's
reader.
happening?
I was reading. I was, I'm a research scientist. I'm going to find out. I'm going to know. And then when he actually arrived, I was like, I have no idea what I'm
No
doing.
clue. No clue. And I really think throughout my pregnancy, because I am a nurse, I'm the medical professional who knows these things, right? So then to realize, like, I know nothing. Mom, first phone call. Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Help, please. You just hit this
Right.
moment. I don't know. I had my son at 23. So it's like that, also that early adulthood transition of like, I really don't know as much as I thought I did. So a lot of moms have huge transition mentally, emotionally in that time frame of just coming to the realization like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But we
So
all have that thought.
having they're physically going through things, hormones are off the chart, so mind, body, everything going on, and then they've got this newborn to care for. They're sleep deprived, you know there's also bonding with your baby,
Yeah.
that's a big thing. You're looking at this little bitty, human, this living soul, and, like, I hope they like me.
Am
Hope he
I going to be the
likes
cool
me.
parent? What are they going to like the person that I am,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
am, by the way, not the cool parent. I am settled in that. It's okay. My husband, Rich, is the fun guy. He's the fun dad. They have this term they call crazy dad is here when he just really gets into the mode. And that's
yeah.
okay. I'm now okay with it. I can't say I was earlier on. But I feel like we all have to figure out how to settle into who we are going to be as a parent, and we make mistakes along the way too, right? And we're still like, all of that is happening as our hormones are shifting, as our body is trying to adjust back to what it was before baby. Maybe for some of us, maybe not so much.
Yeah, it's trying to reset. What it resets to, I'm not actually sure.
I don't know. I really am not sure. The first, with my first, I don't know. I just felt like, oh, I've created life, and look, he's eating and I'm providing all of his milk and he's fat and happy. And I was so proud of myself that I didn't even consider my actual body. Like, I was just kind of firmly in that mode. But not all moms get to experience that in that way. Some moms, their delivery experience is horrendous. It's traumatic and scary. And I've seen that. And in seeing patients in the hospital, sometimes I see a mom and they still kind of seem shocked and shell shocked about what happened with their experience that they
Right.
thought was going to be so beautiful. And I give them permission in those moments. It's okay to feel how you feel about your birth experience. It
Yeah.
didn't go the way we wanted it to go. It really didn't go the way we wanted it to go. If mom is in high risk and the baby's in a NICU,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
you can be sad and have tears about this situation because no, it's not fair. This is not what I wanted. It's not what you wanted. And yet here we are, because it
Mhm.
helps them process to be able to go back to later on. They might not be in a position to really view that in a true light at that moment, but they will, down the line. So I feel like it helps moms to know, like, oh, this was terrible. Even though I love this human so much, to be able to be truthful with themselves about those emotions that they're having about their birth experience as well.
And I'm so glad you brought that up because, you know, say that you're planning a natural delivery and then you have the unexpected cesarean, and you're just so disappointed, or you planned on nursing, but you can't. So disappointed, and women have talked, because I come from the counseling side, but women talk about, oh, I feel less than, I feel, or just what you said, traumatized by the experience, or even talking about all this postpartum depression and anxiety that's gone on afterwards that they did not anticipate. So, I think we all go into it with high hopes and a lot of excitement, and thinking we're going to be the ideal, we're going to be the role model experience. And then when there is that, curve in the road, and or things just do not go according to plan,
Yeah.
there's a lot to deal with there.
Yeah. And I think it's also because it's such a personalized experience, but also it's the baby they've been eagerly anticipating for however long. For some who've suffered through infertility, this might be years of, I've built this up in my head and finally there's a baby. And
Right.
now, oh no, this precious person that I've been waiting for all of this time, and the experience of getting them here has truly been upsetting. And
Yeah.
how do you figure out how to process the emotions that are negative with all of the positive emotions as well? And I feel like a lot of moms kind of stuff it down or deny that they actually have those emotions of sadness, or the anxiety. Oh no, I'm not supposed to be anxious, so I'm not going to feel that, which to some extent can be helpful, but not if you're continuing to have racing, hyper fixated thoughts on particular things like that. But that
Well,
postpartum,
this is good. Talk to us a little bit more about that, because I had one woman, as I was kind of prepping for meeting with you and us having this conversation. I was inviting other women to share with me their thoughts, and one woman said, "Well, I had such a great delivery. I had the ideal. Very short. It went well, no problems, and then I get home and I'm just so sad. I'm just it's not what I wanted, and but can't pinpoint why. Like I have everything I need, everything when why am I feeling this way? Why am I dealing with this?"
I do want to point out in this time frame, it is a very natural experience. I feel like as children of Christ and, Bible scholars and I did Bible quizzing for all of my teen years, right? Like I know enough scripture. I shouldn't be anxious. I shouldn't be sad. I shouldn't there's all these scriptures that you remind yourself of in this time frame, but you've got emotions going on. We're hormonal creatures anyway, let alone when we've grown a human, birthed a human, and are now either feeding that human or trying to raise it. We
Mm-hmm.
are still very hormonal, and those hormones fluctuate tremendously in this postpartum time frame. And so what happens is we get to feel in a certain way that doesn't even match what the picture should be in our head. We feel like I shouldn't feel this way. Beautiful delivery. So why do I feel so sad at home? The first 2 weeks after delivery, we call it baby blues. It's normal. I remember my husband was like going home. I was still in the hospital, going home for the night, just for the night. And
Mm-hmm.
I sobbed for 30 minutes that he was leaving. You are leaving me. And I'm not, I'm very realistic about, I know he's coming right back to me in the
Mm-hmm.
morning. I could not process that. It made no sense. In the back of my head, I kept going, girl, if you don't just let this man go home and go to bed. And I couldn't get off of that. He had to sit there and hold my hand. He was so patient with me. But I was so distraught in that moment. And that's normal. That's baby blues. And it sounds crazy to be like, that's normal. But every mom that I've talked to has had at least one moment in those first 2 weeks where you could not rationalize your way through anything. But what happens after those 2 weeks, those hormones should settle enough where we can kind of start to breathe, start to figure out our rhythm and routine, and start to feel a little better about returning, resetting.
Mm-hmm.
But not all moms reset. Not all moms end up with the perfect, beautiful postpartum picture. And some moms really do end up, that postpartum depression can last months. It can last up to that first year of life for the baby. And they're not interested in things they used to be interested in. They are not eating well or eating too much.
Mm-hmm.
They're not sleeping at all or sleeping all the time. They're neglecting the baby. Some moms are hyper fixated on the baby. And I know these are extremes, but that's the point. There's something going on that's very wrong. I knew of a friend who called me, and she had a friend who had just had a baby, and she had admitted that at one point at night, the baby kept screaming. She put socks all around her baby, put him in a different room, and refused to care for him all night.
Wow.
And she had gone through some trauma in her relationship. Her husband had left and things like that. Usually there's a setup already happening in life, but not all the time. And I was like, you have to get a hold of somebody for her. She has postpartum depression. Something is very wrong. She's not caring for this baby that she loves very much. And she can't recognize it. And you know something's wrong because you called me. And
Right.
so she went over, she got her phone, she called her provider and was like, listen, she's not okay. So they could get her the help that she needed. And I kept calling my friend, like, okay, is she good? Do you need other resources? How can I help? Because these moms don't always recognize that they need help. But we need to, as friends, as sisters, as mothers, if we recognize it in the people we love, find a way to say it. It might not be the most comfortable conversation, but we need to make sure mom and baby are safe. And the best way to do that is to have that uncomfortable conversation. Girl, are you feeling okay? And that's the way I would say it. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like you're not okay. Are you sure? I'm just come over anyway. Let me just come over. I will hold the baby. You sleep. Sometimes they just need a break, but for a lot of these moms, they need more than that. They need, a mental health professional to really start working with them to help them through this process. And some moms have postpartum anxiety. They are so scared. If it's not of everything related to their baby, it could be one thing. I was so afraid of dropping my babies. I think that's normal. But there are some moms who are so afraid they don't carry their baby anywhere. Well, we are not going to get through life for the first months to a year if we don't ever carry the baby. So we have to look at how far does it go, and if it's affecting regular routine things of life, not necessarily, we call them ADLs, right? Activities of daily living. So it wouldn't be, does it affect cooking, but does it affect all the things you need to do to take care of this baby? And if you can't keep the baby safe, if mom can't take care of the baby or with her support people take care of the baby, there's intervention that needs to happen, right? We have to do something. We can't just sit and think if we pray, it will go away. It's a natural thing, right? There's spiritual, which, yes, prayer is helpful, but there's also the natural because we're human.
Absolutely.
And since the wages of sin is death, there are things that occur in our bodies that are very natural that do need to be addressed. If we have high blood pressure, we're not going to pray the blood pressure away. We're going to pray and then still see our provider to make sure that we manage our blood pressure so we don't have strokes or death.
Well, let
Postpartum,
me go back to a statement that you made. So you said sometimes women can't recognize this in themselves.
yeah,
So they're struggling, they're having, these either not tending to the baby or over anxious about the child to the point of not functioning well, but they don't recognize that that's a problem. Is it because it's so new? I've never done this before that, we don't recognize it. And then also, I love that point you made that we as women, like, women need women, and opening our eyes and of course, we're all in church together or at work together. And to be willing, instead of thinking, you know what, I had X number of kids and I survived, to have that compassion to just ask simple questions.
yeah.
I thought that was a great point.
So to the first question, it can be, we might recognize that we're different, that something's off, but think that that's normal, especially if it's our first baby or our first time experiencing those emotions and those thoughts. Um, so we might think, oh, everybody probably or nobody thinks these things, and I'm going to keep it to myself. I'm scared to say something out loud. Somebody
Yeah.
will think I'm a bad mom. And
Ima-
so,
Not having the conversation,
mhm,
ashamed or embarrassed.
it's scary. And I think so with my second, I had postpartum depression. We were going through a lot. Um and so like I said, sometimes there's a setup for it. My husband had lost his full-time job about a month before I delivered. So mine was the only salary at the time in the home. We ended up in foreclosure in that year, her first year of life. She was my ray of sunshine through all of that. Like, this is her first time she's over here with me. It's her first time hearing these things. But like, she really kept me going. And I was crying every day and all these things. And my husband looked at me, I don't know what to do with you. You're the one with all the faith. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, but right now I don't know what to do with myself. And I think a lot of moms feel that way. And I didn't know it was postpartum depression at the time. So, because when I had her, she was one when I started working women's and children's care. So then I look at the screener that we had at work and I was like, well, that was me 6 months ago.
Where was the screener? But this is a great point. And that's kind of what the young woman who contacted me, she felt like no one caught this, and not even, so there are these assessments that could be given, but if they're not given, then it's a kind of an after the fact where we say, that was me, that was me, that was me. So is that where women have to really be their own advocate and talk to that doctor or the nurse practitioner and say, I want an assessment done. I just really feel like something's going on.
That is exactly what is needed. Sometimes we have to just speak up for ourselves. I think having a list of resources just sitting on the refrigerator is important too. Your OB provider, the pediatrician, mental health professional, a lactation consultant if you're trying to breastfeed. If you have those numbers just sitting on the refrigerator, they're present of mind, and also your support people know that that's there. So if they see something's a little off with you, something's going on, and they're like, I think you should call, here's the number here, and you don't want to, or you don't think you need to, you can call for them. I've had, husbands call for their wives to our office. She's not okay. Can somebody call us back, please? We don't even know what we need, but we know we need something. And
Absolutely. Good thought. Yeah.
it's super important for not just mom, because if it's all locked in her phone and she's like, oh, I'm fine. Nobody's looking in her phone, but they are, if they're here at the house and they're helping, if mom is cooking dinner and she's, looking at, or grandmom, I guess we would say in that case, is cooking dinner for, the family, this new family, and sees those numbers on the refrigerator, those resources. Oh, you know what? I know I've been worried about my daughter. Let me talk to her husband about this, or let me make a call. Let me talk to my daughter about how she's feeling and how I think she should reach out to somebody. We need to know that it's okay to advocate for ourselves. There are in our churches, we deal with diverse populations. There are some who don't believe they should advocate, that whatever the healthcare professional says is what goes. And being your own advocate is so important. You live in your body and nobody else. You and the Holy Ghost.
Yes.
So
And a doctor can't know unless you tell
unless
him
you
or her.
tell them. Yep. And they can let them reassure you that you're okay. But if you're not, 9 times out of 10, that your provider is going to say, I think you need further support, and get you to the right people. They'll probably have you come in the office, which might seem like a lot. Also, self-care might go by the wayside. Everything else might be together, but mom hasn't showered in a week. Her hair hasn't been combed, and she's wearing dirty clothes. And not
Mm-hmm.
because the laundry's just not done, right? Like, there are signs there.
Right. There are signs, and self-care is one of the first signs that there might be depression.
Hmm. And
When
so making
there's
sure,
lack of care, personal care.
yes. And so she wouldn't recognize that because she's like, oh, I'm doing the other stuff. Everything else is done, right? But her husband might be like, ma'am, how would I hold a baby? That's
Mhm.
something that husbands can do. I feel like, yes, we as females and women, we recognize and see things, especially if we've experienced them in our life. But our husbands are the ones living with us. And I know sometimes there's moments when we're like mood swinging and they just want to hide under a rock. But if we're not okay, like my husband knew, he said something to me, right? He just didn't know where to go. I didn't have that list of resources on the fridge. So all those little things, all those little nuggets that if you prep yourself ahead of time, maybe you won't need them. Bless the Lord, right? But
Well,
if
we
you
hope
do,
you don't, but if you
right.
do, better to have it there and remove it later
Correct.
than forget about this conversation and then down the road wish you had done better at it.
Correct.
Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you this and your thoughts on it. So, husband is probably the first one we're hoping. Of course, if you live around family and your own mom or sisters or, family members could come around. I live in a military area. So there's times, husbands are deployed, parents and family are far away. Church is present, if they're attending church, but sometimes, you get pastor gets that call, oh, baby's got a runny nose, I'm not coming out. And you're not seeing them as much.
Right.
So let's talk about women, again, being their own advocate. How do they create a network of support? I mean, they're going to have to think about this. If you know your husband travels for business or is going to be deployed or something's going to go on, also, not only that list on the fridge, but setting up a support system. That
Yeah.
just seems like common sense, but maybe, they need to hear it.
Knowing your village. So I think that is super important. And like for me, I was blessed. We're both local, our families, my husband and I. So I had mother-in-law, mom, like I was set, and I felt that, right? It was beautiful. They're both in the delivery room. Like, this is the best. I have two moms. They love me. They're loving on my baby.
Wonderful.
Um, Not everybody has that experience.
Right.
My best friend is a military mom, and she and her husband relocated to this area, and they are now pregnant with their third. And there's been multiple times when I've had to tell her, you are not allowed to go to the emergency room by yourself.
Mhm.
You're not. You're not going to text me and be like, oh, I'm here, they're just going to run a CAT scan real quick. No, ma'am. I
No.
can't do it. Either I'm coming to watch the kids, or your husband is with the kids and I'm coming to you. Like, you don't have to do these things alone, period. Like, I get this is a lifestyle that you guys chose and you love, and you're living it. But that doesn't mean you have to live it isolated. And so knowing where your resources are in your local area, um, military bases are very interesting because they tend to, if you've been there for a while, they create their own type of family. We have an
Mhm.
Air Force base here in Delaware, and so we deliver a lot of those mamas of where I work. And the network that they have there of support, some moms they milk share. Not all moms can make milk, but there are
Right.
moms who make so much milk and they're like, yeah, I got a freezer, but we share on the base, so we're good. Okay. Knowing where those local resources are, there are some resources that I provided for you that you'll make sure that you share,
Yes,
that
be
are
in the
more,
mix. Absolutely.
those are more like international or national ways to connect with moms, but there are a lot of local ways. You can Google for support groups. A lot of your delivering hospitals will probably have support groups. I know where I work, we do the support groups in my department. But there's a lot of resources out there. And then also checking your church. Is there like a young moms group that you haven't had a chance to be a part of because this is your first time being a mom? Look for those when you're pregnant. Look for those during the time before you deliver, and just have those in a list somewhere so all right, well, I'm going to reach out to these moms, and you might not be ready to go outside at first. Look for virtual options, look for in-person options as baby gets older and you're ready to go out and about again, but making sure you're connecting with at least a few people routinely, because those are the people, like you said, that are going to know if something's not right and look you in your eyeballs and check on you.
And they need to see you, and that's in person, not just a text.
Correct. Or
Beautiful
hear
is
your voice, a phone
we need to
call.
hear your voice. We need to
Yes,
see you. So that's important to uh, allow people in and
yes,
to start showing up again. And if you feel like you can't show up, then it's time to call in reinforcements and allow people
correct.
to be part of that. So we're really getting to the end. We could probably talk all day here, but so I just want to kind of restate some helps that I feel like I've heard from you. And you've recommended some reading, but read about what to expect. So kind of have this realistic expectation uh, that things here, there's the ideal and there's the real. So we're praying and seeking the Lord for the ideal, but real, is what happens. And God is still there. God is present. He's with you. He doesn't leave us. He's not forsaking us.
That's
He's
right.
going to be there. I think keeping your personal spiritual disciplines. You may not feel like, oh, I'm going to pray an hour every morning when you haven't slept all night,
Right.
but even just that, laying in your bed before you fall asleep, talking to the Lord, sharing your heart with Him.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we memorize scripture, because maybe sometimes we're just going to quote those passages, and let the word speak to us. Living word still speaks. And so listen to worship music, maintaining an atmosphere that you're aware God is with you. But yes, join a support group. If the hospital or anyone around you, there's your own church moms. If there's not an active title, we have a title. This is our mom support group. Start one by collecting women with children and have
Yeah,
that support group. Ask for the help that you need. Never, ever
absolutely.
be ashamed to ask for the help that you need. Do
We do
not.
not need to be super moms.
No. And we're not. We're
We're not.
not. We're real women who need each other, and the Lord created us that way, that we would not live in isolation. We were meant to live in relationships.
Yeah.
Stay in touch with the doctor. He or she needs to know what's going on. And if it feels like it's going on and it's just not normalizing and settling, find a good counselor.
Right.
We have We have the Association of Christian Counselors, the Center for Apostolic Counselors. We have numerous networks now that people can reach out for online virtual care or someone local in your area. Then you mentioned it. I'll just come over to your house and hold the baby and you go sleep. And sometimes that's all you need. You need somebody to come hold your baby, someone you trust and love. Now, if they hold the baby and make dinner, that's a bonus. But if they'll just make sure your child is happy and safe, go in
Yes.
your bedroom and sleep
Yeah.
without shame. Do it, because there is so much that happens. Healing happens, when we get our rest. I do want to mention that at any time, if your thoughts are overwhelming, your emotions are overwhelming, and you feel like it's just too much, there is a mental health crisis hotline number. You can dial 988, and it's confidential listening support, and they'll connect you to resources. So if you have intrusive thoughts or those scary thoughts of I might hurt my baby, I might hurt myself, you should dial 988, get some help, get someone in the home to be present with you. There's also a national maternal mental health hotline, and we're going to have that in the note sections. So definitely want you to take advantage of all these helps. But in our last few minutes here together, Ashley, I thank you so much for your wisdom and your care, and that you're doing this very hard job. But what are some last thoughts? Anything you wanted to say and didn't get to?
Let me check my notes now.
You
I
check the
think
notes. Good
we
lecture
said
on this.
all of the things. I think we already hit on connect, don't isolate. It's okay and it's normal to feel overwhelmed. I love that you gave out the National Mental Health Hotline crisis number. Please don't feel guilty if you need to use it. It is going to save your life. It's going to save the baby's life. It's going to save your family's life, because when you're in a better spot because you've gotten the help you need, you're going to live the life that Jesus promised us. Sometimes
Excellent.
we just need the help that modern medicine has provided for us in order to get there, because we are human beings. So we still have to live in these bodies that are fallible until that time. And make sure you are reaching out. You got to use your resources. Talk to your pastor and your pastor's wife. They
Yes.
are right there frontline with you. They already probably know something is going on and they're waiting for you to reach out. They don't want to overstep their boundaries. But your pastor and pastor's wife, and mine are my parents. So it's a routine conversation for us, but it still is a necessary resource. God, like you said, He orchestrated us to be a part of relationship, and that pastoral relationship is so precious and God ordained, and very much so important for them to be looped in, especially if you're struggling, so they can support you, so they can pray over your family and pray
Yeah.
that.
Well, and I think it goes back to, as soon as you're, physically able, go to church.
Yeah,
Because even if you feel like I can't do any, you can sit in the presence of the Lord,
right.
surrounded by worshipers, and hold your baby and be restored in the presence of the Lord, being around people who care about you. So as soon as possible, I think attending church, make that a priority, because that's going to be a room filled with people who care about you.
Absolutely. And you'll automatically feel less isolated. There are so
Abs-
many people who can't wait to see your face again. They've missed you.
yes. And it's okay to tell them, like, we're not letting anybody hold the baby right now. There's so much sickness. Don't stay home out of fear.
Yeah.
You can put cardboard boxes around your baby with "Don't even ask" signs on it, but go to church. Do what you have to do to go to church. So thank you again, Ashley, for being with us. It's always a joy to see your face and spend time, but thank you for sharing your expertise. I
Thank you
appreciate it.
so much for having me. I so appreciate being here and being able to talk about this important topic that's so near and dear to my heart. So I appreciate
Well,
it.
the Lord called you to it, that's for sure. And I want to thank all of those who are listening or viewing. Thank you for joining us on this episode and including us in your day. So check the notes section. We've talked about it several times. There's helps in there and links. There's reading recommendations, all kinds of good stuff in there. And I'd like to also remind everyone that now Reflections Magazine has both print and digital options. So if you want to go online only, you have that option. So I hope that you are already a subscriber to the magazine. But if not, please do subscribe. In the magazine, you will find all the extras related to the podcast itself. So when you get your issue of the magazine, you can just look up Let's Talk and it's all in there. And we do hope that you will Let's Talk and comment, share it and subscribe wherever you podcast. Well, we want to go there and do all those wonderful things to help get the word out that apostolic women have a resource, a place that they can go to talk about fun stuff and talk about things that are hard to talk about and talk about things that nobody else is wanting to talk about. And that's our hope, that we can address that. So let's share this episode with as many as we can and support each other. And until next time, thank you for being with us, and God bless.